Back to the channel. Today we're going to unravel some incredibly complex events in Genoa. Rumors are circulating around the Newman family, but what's the truth? In this video, I'll summarize the plot points that will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned to see what happens. Welcome back to our channel, your premier destination for the most explosive updates and deep dives into Genoa City's finest drama. Today is a beautiful day to unravel the tangled webs of deception, heartbreak, and shocking betrayals that are currently holding our favorite families hostage. Young and the Restless spoilers. The air inside the sprawling, historically safe Abbott mansion is currently thick with an almost suffocating, paralyzing tension, a palpable dread that seems to seep from the very walls of the grand estate. Traci Abbott, the traditional peacemaker and the emotional anchor of the family, sits at the center of a terrifying storm that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Standing firmly behind her, forming a silent but fiercely protective wall of solidarity, are Jack Abbott, Kyle Abbott, and a deeply traumatized Diane Jenkins Abbott. Diane's recent, harrowing escape from the clutches of the deranged doctor. Lawrence Markham has left the entire family on high alert, transforming their luxurious home into a heavily guarded fortress. Traci, drawing upon a hidden reservoir of immense courage, prepares to confront a ghost from their darkest night. Will this desperate gamble to protect her family ultimately lead Traci directly into a lethal trap? With trembling but resolute hands, Traci opens her laptop, the glowing screen illuminating her pale, determined face in the dimly lit room. She turns to Jack, Kyle, and Diane, issuing a strict, non-negotiable command. They must remain absolutely silent while she speaks with the notorious Martin Laurent. Traci knows all too well that Martin is a master of psychological warfare, a highly paranoid and volatile predator who would not hesitate to sever the connection and vanish into the shadows if he suspects an... The heavy silence in the room is deafening, broken only by the frantic beating of their own hearts as the digital dialing tone rings out. As the connection is established, the fate of the Abbott family hangs precariously in the balance. What terrifying demands will this cold-blooded mastermind make once the screen flickers to life? The video call connects, and the chilling, unmistakable face of Martin Laurent fills the screen, his expression twisted into a mask of sociopathic warmth and polite arrogance. Martin smiles, his eyes gleaming with a predatory delight, and tells Traci that it is truly wonderful to see her. He begins to reminisce, casually bringing up the long, intimate walks and the deep, revealing conversations they used to share, twisting their traumatic past into a weapon of nostalgic manipulation. His casual demeanor is a stark, horrifying contrast to the brutal reality of the danger he poses, sending shivers down the spines of the silent Abbott family members watching from the shadows. How long can Traci maintain her composure while staring directly into the eyes of the man who has caused them so much agonizing? Refusing to be drawn into his twisted psychological games, Traci cuts through his pleasantries with a voice made of absolute steel. "This isn't exactly a social call," she replies, her tone icy and unwavering, masking the sheer terror vibrating through her veins. "I reached out because I need your help." Without missing a beat, she demands to know if Martin is familiar with a therapist by the name of Dr. Lawrence Markham. The mention of the name hangs in the digital space between them, a heavy, loaded question that holds the key to Diane's safety and the Abbott family's future. Will Martin feign ignorance, or will he eagerly claim his connection to the rogue doctor currently hunting them? Martin's reaction to the name is a chilling display of sheer arrogance and dark amusement. "Markham," Martin muses, a sinister smirk playing on his lips. How could I forget that good doctor? Traci, pressing her advantage, fiercely informs him that Markham kidnapped Diane, has gone on the run, and is currently hiding in the shadows as a lethal, unpredictable threat to their lives. She makes it abundantly clear that until they know exactly where Markham is, the entire family remains in grave danger. Martin scoffs, casually dismissing Markham as being just as arrogant and flawed as his own brother, a statement dripping with dark irony. What dark secrets does Martin truly hold about Markham, and how much damage is he willing to inflict to keep them hidden? The true horror of Martin's game reveals itself when he drops a crucial, tantalizing piece of information, dangling it just out of Traci's desperate reach. He casually mentions that he knows Markham has rented a secluded summer house, a perfect isolated hideaway for a man on the run. However, Martin, ever the manipulative puppet master, refuses to simply hand over the location or any other vital intelligence he possesses. Instead, he issues a sickening, non-negotiable ultimatum. He will only provide the information if Traci does him a small favor. He demands that she visit him in person, face to face, so that he can look into her eyes and beg for her forgiveness. Is this request a genuine plea for redemption, or is it the opening move in a sinister, deadly new game of cat and mouse? I am confident I know enough about Markham to give you everything you need to keep your family safe. Martin promises, his voice dripping with a toxic blend of sincerity and menace. Driven by a fierce maternal instinct to protect Jack and Diane from the looming threat, Traci reluctantly agrees to set up the harrowing in-person meeting. With a swift, decisive motion, she abruptly closes the laptop, severing the connection and plunging the room back into a heavy, breathless silence. She turns to Jack, her brave facade cracking just a fraction, and admits that staring into Martin's eyes was far harder and more terrifying than she ever could have imagined. Yet, a part of her fiercely wanted to prove to Martin and to herself that she is no longer afraid of him. Will Jack allow his beloved sister to walk directly into the lion's den, or will he intervene to stop this madness? Across town, at the majestic and imposing Newman Ranch, a completely different, yet equally devastating tragedy is quietly unfolding in the agonizing shadows of the... Nikki Newman awakens in her luxurious bedroom, her world consumed by an oppressive, suffocating darkness that has become her daily nightmare. Today is the day of her highly anticipated doctor's appointment, the day the bandages will finally be removed following her high-risk optic nerve surgery. The emotional weight of this morning is crushing, a heavy burden of desperate hope and paralyzing fear that threatens to completely break her fragile spirit. Will this be the day the Newman matriarch finally reclaims her sight and her independence, or is she destined to remain trapped in the dark? With trembling, uncertain hands, Nikki goes through the agonizing, sensory-deprived motions of her morning routine, a stark reminder of the autonomy. She carefully brushes her hair, relying entirely on touch and memory, and gently slides a headband into place, attempting to maintain her signature grace and dignity, even in the face of absolute despair. Slowly, she reaches her hand out, her fingertips brushing against the cold, smooth glass of her vanity mirror. "If my prayers are answered," she whispers to her reflection, her voice breaking with raw, unfiltered emotion, "I will be able to see myself by the end of the day." Knowing the tragic truth that her vision will not return, how will Nikki survive the apocalyptic, emotional collapse that is waiting for her at the cliff? While Nikki battles her terrifying darkness upstairs, a fierce, brewing storm of anger and betrayal is taking shape in the grand living room below. Victor Newman, radiating his usual authoritative and commanding presence, is deep in a tense conversation with his son, Nick Newman. Victor, always the master chess player, reveals that he has been closely tracking the movements of the amnesiac Matt Clark. He informs Nick that Matt spent the entire night at the Genoa City Athletic Club and has not yet fled the town as they originally suspected. Victor's tone suggests he believes he still has the upper hand, completely unaware of the explosive, stomach-churning truth his son is about to deliver. How will the great Victor Newman react when he realizes his pawn has aligned with his greatest? Nick Newman, his face a complex canvas of pure disgust, sheer exhaustion, and barely contained rage, shatters his father's illusions with a single explosive revelation. "You won't like who he stayed with," Nick replies, his voice laced with a bitter, venomous edge. He looks Victor dead in the eye and drops the bombshell. Matt Clark spent the night with none other than Phyllis. The sheer audacity of this unholy alliance sends shockwaves through the room. Phyllis, the woman who recently lost Newman Enterprises and is fighting for her legal life, has now romantically entangled herself with the very monster who previously kidnapped Nick and terrorized their family. What dark, manipulative endgame is Phyllis playing by seducing a man who cannot even remember his own violent past? Nick's voice drops to a lethal, trembling whisper as he recounts the sickening details of his discovery at the GC. He confesses to Victor that he personally went upstairs to the hotel suite, his heart pounding with a mixture of dread and fury. I went upstairs and knocked on the door, but they didn't answer. Nick states the horrific implications of that locked door hanging heavily in the air. The thought of Phyllis and Matt intimately secluded behind closed doors is enough to make Nick physically ill. This devastating betrayal, coupled with the impending heartbreak of his mother's failed surgery, is pushing Nick dangerously close to the edge of his fragile sobriety. Will the overwhelming stress of Phyllis's betrayal and Nikki's blindness finally trigger a catastrophic fentanyl relapse for the convergence of these explosive storylines threatens to tear the very fabric of Genoa City apart at the seams. Phyllis is playing a highly dangerous, potentially lethal game of romantic roulette with Matt Clark attempting to mold the amnesiac villain into a weapon against the Newman family. Meanwhile, Nick is fighting a grueling, agonizing internal battle against his drug addiction, his willpower eroding with every new family crisis. And looming over it all is the terrifying prospect of Traci Abbott walking willingly into a room with Martin Laurent. With secrets unraveling, unlikely alliances forming, and lives hanging in the balance, the fallout from these decisions will be nothing short of apocalyptic. Who will be the first to break under the immense pressure, and who will pay the ultimate price for these dangerous games?